We're going to talk to my good friend Ryan McEachron. Most people know him as the CEO of RMAC Insurance, ISU RMAC Insurance Company. And we're going to talk a little bit about that from a business perspective. He's also an elected official. He's on the San Bernardino County Board of Education. And we might talk some fun stuff about just elections in general, because you've been in a lot of elections over your life. And maybe local government for a minute. We did a bit on local government with Dakota, and a lot of response. People just don't pay a lot of attention to their local government. So, but welcome, Ryan.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Yes. In these series, what we're trying to do is give people access to the kind of people that I rely on for advice that they may or may not have ever thought of accessing, and where they can go to ask the questions and kind of get some of that, I'd call it procedural information about how things are put together, especially when people come to me, they want to form a business, they've never done it before, what are the important things they need to put together? And one of the things on my checklist is insurance. Yeah,
insurance is an important one, especially for any kind of business, right, in California. And, so we look at, the initial coverage that you need is like general liability, obviously, to protect you for whatever it is you're doing, whether you're providing a service or manufacturing something, or even have a store where you're selling something. But also workers' compensation. Obviously, you have employees, you got to have workers' comp. It's statutorily required in the state of California. And so that begins the process of what you need to get started. But there's a lot of coverage out there that has become more and more, something you got to have these days. And, that becomes employment practices liability, which is not statutorily required. Cyber liability is a huge issue right now. We see a lot of businesses getting hit by hackers and, email phishing schemes and, getting people to wire money to do things that they shouldn't be doing. So employment practices liability and cyber liability has become, quite a big issue here in the state of California, across the United States in general as well. But we're selling a lot of that these days.
When you and I first started working on insurance packages, for me, it was liability and workers' comp. Liability and workers' comp.
That was it.
That was all I was required to carry.
Yeah.
I provided health insurance willingly, but I was allowed to pass costs on completely or to, as much as I wanted, right? I mean, now you're required, right? You have to provide health insurance if you have how many employees?
Two.
Two employees.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, I have business clients that violate that rule. I have business clients that don't have workers' comp. They say, well, I'm a small business, I don't have to have workers' comp. I mean, how many employees do you have to have before you have to have workers' comp?
One. The minute you have one employee, you have to have workers' comp. And actually, contractors have to carry workers' comp even if they have no employees, because for their license with the state of California, their contractor state license board requires all contractors to have workers' comp, even if they don't have employees, because you can always hire someone, to come in and help you do a job, and that immediately creates that employer-employee relationship, and where you are required to have workers' comp. So, we have the state compensation insurance fund out there that basically will write a policy for contractors, even if they don't have employees. It's a minimum premium depending upon what type of contracting you're in. It could be $500,000 a year. But you have to pay for that in order to get your license with the state of California. So even if you don't have employees, you might be required to carry workers' comp, especially if you're a contractor.
And guess what? You think you're getting away with it, and then an employee gets hurt. They file workers' comp claim. You think, cool, I don't have workers' comp insurance, I don't have to pay. And then the state comes in and pays the claim, and then you get sued.
Yeah, you get sued. You could possibly lose your license. It's a whole ordeal. So I definitely would err on the side of carrying workers' comp, even if you don't have any payroll and no employees. In most cases, especially through the state fund and some other insurance companies, you can get a policy to cover yourself even if you don't have employees, because there's always that possibility during the course of a year that you might hire someone, and that immediately creates the employer-employer relationship.
So if someone's looking to become a business, so they're going to get a corporation, they're going to do a business. They've been an employee. It is not their fault. They don't understand this, but you can't go on your traditional consumer app and properly insure yourself. And I see that all the time. You can't go to your traditional consumer insurance company and properly insure yourself. They don't have the coverages. And even if there's a broker and agent saying, I can cover this, they can't. They don't have the coverages. And I call RMAC Insurance when I have a business client to discuss coverages. Do I have sufficient coverages in leases? Do I have sufficient coverages for any undertaking we're taking? Can you read the insurance provisions in this contract to make sure I match up? It's not a simple thing. Insurance feels simple because if you have a W-2 job and you have a car and you go on, you can just click radio buttons and say, look, I got auto insurance, I'm all set. It's a horse of another color if you have company vehicles with employees driving them and you have a facility, right? I mean, you need to sit down with your insurance broker and really go over the coverages.
Yeah, especially if you're you have a fleet of vehicles and you're driving here in the state of California on, liability limits that you would put on your personal automobile. 30, 60 is the minimum required in the state of California. But as a business, you're required to, in most cases, to carry $1 million of general liability. Carrying low limits on your auto insurance when you've got employees driving your vehicles out there makes absolutely no sense. You really should be talking to a professional about that and making sure that you're properly insured. In a lot of cases, the minimum limits on a business lease of a vehicle would be 100, 300, or 500,000 combined single limit. But in most cases, and for most of the insureds that we write commercial auto insurance for, we're writing $1 million on their commercial auto as well. But yeah, you make a good point. The reality is, whether you come talk to us or someone else, you should be talking to someone. Don't try to do this on your own.
Yeah, so no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Yeah, you're never going to be able to completely look at every single situation or scenario. And in a lot of cases, and you understand this better than anybody, but as a business, you'll enter into contracts, and every single contract's going to have some sort of insurance requirement in there. We review those all the time, every day, multiple times for our clients, because they're wanting to make sure that, are we complying with these insurance requirements? And if we're not, what do we need to get? What is it going to cost us? Is it something we really should have? In a lot of cases, I've had clients where I've told them, no, push back. There's no reason for you to have environmental liability. You're not doing anything that would require you to have environmental liability, so you don't need to carry that coverage. And so they'll get that written out of the contract. But if you're not looking at that, in a lot of cases, we've had situations where a client will have entered into a contract, never had us review it, then come back to us and say, I need a certificate of insurance and I need all of this on it. They're done with the job. We can't write a policy at that point to cover that exposure, right? So we provide a certificate of insurance, and guess what? The payer says, I can't pay you because you didn't have that insurance. You have to have someone looking at those contracts before you enter into them to make sure you're properly covered, because they will always use that as a reason not to pay you.
Always use it. Always. And so the steps are, we would meet 3 months before renewal, because you want that time to look at exclusions and and price markets. What if somebody is a business? How early would you like to meet with them before we talk about renewals?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're looking to start a business, as soon as you possibly can. But if you're in the process and you're wanting someone to look at your policies right now before they come up for renewal, getting a jump start on that 6 months out is probably the best case scenario. As you get to 90 days, that's when the whole underwriting process really starts with insurance companies. At 60 days, we're in the midst of it, right? And at 30 is really, in a perfect world, 30 is when you should be looking at your renewal quotes, making decisions, getting coverage in place. That's not to say that a lot of times these things happen as you get right to the very end because of the insurance companies, and sometimes they're not they're not as up to speed and on time as we'd like them to be, right? But that's what we really try to work towards. But if you're wanting to look at that, you need to be looking at that, 6 months ahead of time to kind of be setting in motion that process in which to make changes.
And the client, I'd encourage them to ask you questions. What is excluded? Nothing's worse than getting a policy, having a claim, and it be excluded. You want to know up front, am I insured for these types of events? And they should ask you all kinds of questions, like, would this be included? Would that be included?
Yeah.
Is it a claims made or a policy? I hope that, I know that you always would help me, and I know your dad has read a few policies for me too, but they need to ask questions.
Yeah.
It's a boring subject.
It is.
But they need to ask questions.
And of course, as the insured, you should always read your own policy. But that's not to say that you can't have a professional involved in the process help you understand what's in that policy, right? And that's what a job of an insurance agent, insurance broker is to help you understand that policy, help you understand what's covered, what's not covered. Can you get that covered through some sort of other policy that we can write out there? Cyber liability is a perfect example. That is not covered under general liability. If you take any personal identifiable information from any of your customers, you immediately have a cyber liability exposure. You need to have coverage for that. So, if you are an employer, you have employees, you not only need workers' comp, but you need employment practices liability. So those are the types of things we can talk through as we're reviewing your insurance program.
The other thing I tell the clients, and I know I've asked you this before, the price of the insurance is important. To me, the most important part of the insurance is that the company's not going to deny the claims.
Correct.
And a professional, if you're a broker, independent broker, and he's not the only one, you can go to any independent broker, they're going to have different claims experiences with different carriers. And they'll tell you, hey, X, they're cheaper, but guess what? They'll probably deny it right off the bat, and they'll make you go through an entire arbitration process to get paid. And they pay their claims.
Right. Yeah, and we do deal with a bunch of different insurance companies, right? So we kind of, over the years, have gotten to understand how their claims process works. Are they quick about it? Do they adjust claims in a timely manner? And, how often are they going to pay out, not pay out, that type of thing. And most insurance companies, they're paying on claims. That's not really the issue, but they definitely all have different ways of handling it. And so navigating that process sometimes can be onerous and tedious and a little frustrating for an insured. But we can be there to, kind of help you along through that process as well. And even get involved if an insurance company is not being responsive, claims adjuster's not calling you back, that type of thing. That's when we get on the phone call. We, go up the ladder, so to speak, and talk to supervisors and try to get these people to respond to you, make sure your claim is getting paid in a timely manner.
It's an important point, and it's one of the reasons why I never felt good going direct insured.
Yeah.
I want a broker who's on my side. I just feel better about it, because if I have a claim, I don't want that delay. How to get a hold of somebody, weeks, months. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So, elephant in the room. Elephant in the room is EPLI. I mean, there's an insomnia going on in this state. It's tragic. I went to, EPLI stands for Employment Practices Liability Insurance. What that stands for is somebody's going to say they were harassed, somebody's going to say they were discriminated against, somebody was wrongfully terminated, right? And hate to bring it up as a generational thing, but there's a generational thing to it.
Yeah.
And there's a workforce right now that if you frown at them, that's harassment. And if they get fired, it has to have been wrongful. There's no they can't imagine a world where they could not get their participation trophy. And they're going to go, and there is a litany, right? There is a whole sea of questionable integrity attorneys that will take just about anything in that area. So EPLI, I mean...
Yeah, it's unfortunately become probably the most needed insurance policy and coverage for anybody in the state of California, because as an employer, you cannot just terminate anyone anymore. It's not as easy as you're not doing your job. I've tried and tried and tried, and it's just not working. Even if you crossed your T's and dotted your I's, at the end of the day, you terminate an employee, they will sue you, most likely in this state. There are attorneys that will take their case. They will bring a lawsuit against you and say, you wrongfully terminated, you discriminated, you violated all these wage and hour things, and you didn't do any of those things. But the reality is, we live in the state of California. It is the most litigious state in the nation, and it does not have to be any justification to bring a complaint against an employer. You can just do it, and you can make all these accusations, and then as an employer, you have to fight back against that. So having that coverage has become more and more necessary, and in reality mandatory for any employer to have these days, because it's just anytime you terminate an employee, even for cause, and there's all very good reasons. They weren't doing their job. They didn't show up to work. They showed up to work drunk. Whatever the case may be, you terminate them and you're going to get sued.
I know.
It just doesn't matter. You're going to get sued. You had all the justification in the world, and then that process begins where you have to go through this back and forth, and ultimately it settles for a lot less than you as an employer were ever getting sued for. But that initial complaint, the initial letter that you get from the attorney, they want the world from you because they think you did something wrong to them. And unfortunately, as employers, we have businesses to run. We need employees to run them. AI hasn't taken over the world just yet. And so as long as we still need staff to help us run our businesses, this exposure is going to continue to be there, and it's going to be very important for businesses and employers to have this coverage to protect themselves.
And they don't know. I have client after client, one a month. What do you mean I'm not covered? I didn't know I needed that. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong, Dave. They left.
Yeah.
They left. I didn't see them again. They never came back.
Yeah.
And then I got a letter from an attorney, and now I have to hire you and pay you all this money to negotiate some sort of settlement because I didn't have the coverage. And
Yeah.
It is
so unfortunate, and it's just
killing productivity. It's killing work ethic. It's killing societal values. Work hard, save your money. It's killing the fabric of the state. But that doesn't make it not a reality.
No.
It's a cost of doing business.
Yeah, it's a cost of doing business, and I don't foresee it changing anytime soon. I mentioned AI, and I know AI will take over some of these jobs that we have in our office environments and throughout California. But the reality is that there's still going to be employer-employee relationships. That is not going to go away. And so, unless for some reason that completely went away, you're always going to have this exposure out there, and it's going to be very important to cover yourself for it.
And for the legal profession, the people that makes them happy. They want to do that kind of law or whatever. I don't know what motivates that, but in the profession, I mean, most times you're not even dealing with attorneys. They're mills of just paperwork, just sometimes misspelled names. They don't even know the people. They don't know, and they ask you for all the records, and we send it on behalf of the client. Here's all the records. The person's been paid perfectly, and they're like, I don't care. I'm not reading that. I don't care. Pay your ransom.
Yeah, that's
ransom.
really what it is. It is a ransom that they're looking for. So,
and this insurance is money in the kitty.
Yeah.
To pay ransoms when somebody takes your pirate ship.
Yeah, and the reality is that the attorneys that bring these complaints against employers are hoping that employer has this type of insurance because it's more likely that they'll get a settlement out of it, right? Mm-hmm. So that is really the game that they're playing. They want these employers to have this insurance, and there's a lot of business owners out there that say, well, I'm not going to settle, I'm not going to pay the that person doesn't deserve a dime. Well, the reality is that you're never going to not pay anything, right? You're going to pay an attorney to help you get out of it, but at the end of the day, there is always some sort of settlement, right? It's never zero.
It's never
It's
zero.
never zero. So the least amount you can pay, that's the best case scenario. But having an attorney, having a policy that stands behind that is so very important.
And if every one of my clients had this and I never had to deal with one of those again, I would be so happy.
Yes, it would be.
Look at
nice.
that. I want less business.
Yeah.
Because it is so sad, because these business owners, I mean, every one of them I've ever seen, they're completely frivolous. They're just trash.
Yeah.
It's just trash. It's just ransom. But
Yeah.
it's the climate tax, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't run a state this bad if you didn't have this great climate, the ocean and mountains, right? I mean, there's a reason why they can get away with this, right?
Yes, so true. So true.
So, all right. So that's it. Then the other elephant in the room, right, is wage and hour, and there's no insurance, right, for that yet.
No, most policies, employment practices liability policies, may include some coverage for wage and hour defense, but they'll never pay. So if there was a judgment against an employer to pay back wages, overtime, all that type of stuff, as an employer, you would still be responsible for that. You wouldn't be able to get coverage for that. But you can get, on some policies, some companies will include some wage and hour defense coverage. Usually it's not the same limit as the total policy, it's a supplement.
Get it. Get it, because you could pay them from the moment they wake up out of their bed, pay them to drive to work, pay them for all their lunch, meal, rest breaks, document them all, make sure they take them, even though they don't want to take them, make sure they take them all, pay them until they drive all the way home, and then just pay them on Saturday to be at home anyway, and they're still going to bring the claim.
100%. Yeah.
And you're like, well, I pay days that don't even work. And they say, but we're still going to bring this claim. When you provide the information to the plaintiff's counsel, they're not going to read it.
No.
So if you can get some defense coverage, that's going to save you $10,000, $15,000 attorney's fees. Get it?
Yeah, 100%.
Because the other side of it is, I've got employers now that say, well, I just don't fire people anymore. They can do whatever they want, I just don't fire them. Well, that's great, except that the businesses that are doing that, your customers know.
Yeah.
Believe me, they know when they see these horrific employees. And they all say the same thing. They have the worst people working there. This place is terrible. And the employer's sitting there saying, I wish it was the old days. I wish I could fire them all and get new ones, but I'm too scared.
Yeah.
So you still got to run the business effectively. You got to circle out the people that don't work. There's no solution, but get the maximum coverage, right?
100%. Make sure you have the coverage. That's best advice.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna ask you about some of the election stuff, the local election stuff. Right now, tell me about the position you hold and what you do there.
Yeah, so I was elected to the San Bernardino County Board of Education back in 22, and so I've been sitting there for 3.5 years now. And it's a fascinating position. It's definitely different from when I was on the city council here in Victorville. We're dealing with providing education to some of our most needy students in the county of San Bernardino, those with disabilities and needs that the traditional school system cannot handle. We also oversee the education of those that are in the juvenile court system, and so we provide education for them there. And so the county plays an important role in providing education to the students in our county that cannot be served otherwise. So, and that's my primary role there. Work with the county superintendent of schools to provide that service. We're in charge of a budget of $500 million, and so we oversee that and actually just approved the budget for this next fiscal year. So there's a lot of importance there. One of the major roles that I play is just in advocating for education in our county, making sure that we're providing the best education we possibly can to the students in our county, and more specifically to the region that I represent, which is the entire high desert region. My region goes from the border in Nevada. I represent Baker, Trona, all the way out to Needles at the Arizona border, and then of course all the high desert regions, so Apple Valley, Hesperia, Victorville, So it's a wide, large territory. Put a lot of miles on the car going to visit some of these schools, but it's been very enjoyable, and I like doing it.
And this was the traditional way. They don't do it this way anymore, but the traditional way in this town, where how you used to get into politics, is you started with the planning commission, right? You would get, in the old Victorville days, it was a 5-0-5-0-5-0 Victorville council that got elected forever, and they would start you off teaching you about civics by planning commission. You started on the planning commission.
Yes, I did start on the planning commission. I actually sat on the planning commission for 7 years before I ran for city council and was elected in 2008, and then served on the council for 8 years until 2016. Was mayor in there 2010 to 2012, but back when I ran the first time, we had a campaign. We ran it out of my office. We were making phone calls at night. We did mail pieces. Signs were up all over the city. I mean, we really went at it. Today in Victorville, as well as all the other local elections, you're going to still see signs. There's still going to be mail, but we've gone to a district system now. So, when I ran for the Victorville City Council, it was an at-large election. So it was the entire city, right, that was voting for each council member. Now the city council in all the municipalities up here in the high desert and pretty much throughout the state are now separated into districts. So it's a much smaller area that you're looking to garner votes from. Easier to go knock on doors. A lot of that has, for larger areas, it's impossible to knock on everybody's door. But for these smaller districts, a lot easier for you to get to those constituents and those people that vote in your election. So knocking on doors is probably coming back from that perspective. But phone calls, knocking on doors, sending out mailers. It's and putting up signs. it's what local elections are made of.
I'm going to give them a better peek into it, though. A better peek into it.
Yes.
I can't believe it. It seems like yesterday that we were not the old people that would say in the old days. And now I'm constantly saying in the old days. In the old days, right, I remember you deciding to run for that because we sat outside of Vitelli's. Yep. And you said, I think I'm going to run for city council. And I asked you, I said, do you have permission to do this? You're not supposed to do this yet. And you were told by council you weren't quite ready yet. And you said, no, but I think it's time. And I was like aghast that you were going to do that.
Yeah, I definitely ran against a system and a machine that had been in place for a long period of time.
A long time.
Yeah, and I basically was able to kind of really mix things up in that election. And if memory serves me correctly, I raised and spent $150,000 to get elected. The opposition spent about the same amount, and then I had hit pieces coming after me that was so it was almost $500,000 spent on the election when I ran in 2008 to get elected. That's not normal, but it was what was required at that time in order to change things. And of course, the reason there was so much money in that election is because you have to remember 2006, 2007, when I decided to run, this place was booming. Everybody and their mother was building a home. You remember this, right? And so the development community who wanted more from their city council and wasn't getting it was like, how do we get someone on that council that will represent us? And I had always been and continue to be a friend to the development community. And they got behind me and they spent a lot of money to help get me elected. And so that was the reason that you saw so much money in that election. But, subsequent elections and whatnot, you don't see that type of money being spent. But that was the reason. And of course, I got elected. And the minute I get elected, the entire economy fell off a cliff.
Yes.
And it no longer mattered. The development community, they left. They're like, thanks, Ryan, but we don't need you anymore. I mean, they literally left overnight. And the whole high desert region just kind of came to a complete standstill. And of course, we dealt with different problems at that point in time, right? You know, you own the dealership. Were people going to buy cars anymore?
No,
I mean, we were dealing with trying to bail people, you know, dealerships out. We had to lay off a ton of employees at the city.
And I don't know if they still even do this anymore, but back then I was contributed to the campaign. I was like, and there were a number of people saying, this was like the rule back then is, well, you never back any challenger. You only back incumbents if you have to. And if the guy gets elected or girl gets elected, then you go to their debt forgiveness party and you pay your tithe for I'm sorry I didn't support you.
I didn't support you.
And that was something I lived by, because in the business community, supporting council members is absolutely important. I don't know if people still understand that, but it was absolutely crucial. And in that one, I remember even trying to raise money from people for the campaign, and they say, well, I'll get him if he wins. I'll get him on the debt forgiveness.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do that. Do they still do debt forgiveness parties?
Yeah, those still occur. But I you know, obviously, our relationship aside, you took a huge risk in supporting me.
Yeah.
But you know, it was one of those things. You got behind me, you believed in me, and of course, the rest was history. But yeah, you're right. It's for a lot of organizations and businesses out there, supporting someone running against you know, the incumbency can be a little scary, because you know, if that person doesn't win, then you've got some forgiveness to ask for. You know, you got to be worried. You own a business in a city where you ran, you know, you supported someone that was running against that machine. You know, you got to be careful. But it all worked out. I had to learn to work with other council members once I got on there. Of course, I knew them all because I had been on the planning commission. It wasn't that I was just an outsider, so to speak. I had been there. It's just, I think that they, at the time, felt that I should wait my turn, and I didn't feel like waiting. So
any longer.
So I went for it.
And so, yeah, I mean, and the council's job in any city is just oversight, right?
Right.
Hire a great CEO, which is your city manager. Read your reports, do that. You're not running the day-to-day.
No, not at all.
You're not supposed to be.
Yeah, and you're really setting policy. What's important, you know?
Yeah.
For me, when I ran, it was public safety. Give us more police officers on the street. You know, more firefighters to be able to put out the fires. You know, building roads. I was big on building roads, and when I got on the council said, okay, if you think you're that good, we're going to put you on Sandbag, which San Bernardino Associated Governments, who was responsible for all the transportation funding in the county, and we were never getting our fair share up here. So they sent me down there and they said, bring it back. And you know, that was my job. And my marching orders were to go down there and bring funds back up here. And that's when we saw La Mesa Nisqually interchange
I was
bill,
gonna say it.
Ranchero interchange bill. We saw the Ranchero underpass built for the railroad to go over it. The Linwood Road grade separation out in Barstow was built during that period of time. And ultimately, the Yucca Bridge and the Green Tree Extension, even though that came after, the funding for that and securing the funding of that occurred while I was on the council and a part of Sandbag. So,
got to be in the room.
Yeah, you got to be in the room. You've got to build those relationships and make sure that you're interacting with those folks, so that when it comes time for your project to get funded, they're there for you. And that was so very important down when you're in a room full of 24 cities and their representatives and 5 county supervisors. You have to get those votes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so very important that you have 15 votes to get anything passed, and we did. So,
and now we're seeing like a little bit of a drain inside of some of these cities, local cities. I don't know how far it goes. You know, they're having a hard time filling some executive positions and stuff. And I mean. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I mean, we have the prodigy in Victorville, the guy. I mean, he's doing. I can't believe when I go to State of the City for Victorville, what we see that he's doing. He's getting gas delivered. He owns his own gas delivery to save money. He took over the fire department. He's got SCLA. We're not going to see another individual do that kind of work in any of these cities in my lifetime.
No.
That was amazing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, you know, to Keith Metzler's credit, his working at the city since, he was a teenager
I know.
at the golf course and working his way up, through economic development. He basically knows it like the back of his hand, right? So, but he has been able to accomplish some amazing things in his tenure there. The budget is balanced. They've got all this money. They're going to get ready to build a multi-million-dollar new police station. You're seeing development occur over there around Roy Rogers with Target coming back in and all the businesses that are going to be over there. So it is amazing some of the things he has done in his tenure and will continue to do before he retires. But he's set that city, our city, up with tremendous success, and whoever comes in to succeed him is really going to have something nice handed to them, and hopefully they can keep it going.
Beyond nice.
Yeah.
Beyond nice to walk into the situation that they've created there. And he's building down stream with his new internship program.
Yeah.
And he has almost all four-year graduates now applying for city positions, and the way he's grooming the executive staff and giving them a little bit at a time, it's a machine in Victorville.
Yeah, he's really setting Victorville up for future success even when he's no longer there. And I think that that's so very important. It speaks to his leadership quality and ability, and he's just done a great job. And, I know his retirement's on the horizon, probably in the next 4 years.
If ever, who knows?
But he's done a tremendous job there. And
the Hope Center.
Yeah.
When I was working on that side of town, we had severe homeless problems. They are not the same. Anybody who says they're the same wasn't paying attention or didn't live in it. You were just reading the news. It is not the same now that the Hope Center's open.
Yeah. Victorville with the Wellness Center down there near the river and near the 15 freeway, and what they've been able to accomplish there in our city has set an example statewide. I mean, I know of other cities and areas that I've talked to where they're trying to implement the same type of thing that we've done here in Victorville. So yeah, kudos to them, and that what the city's done and their public-private partnerships with the Simba Center and that's running it, they've done a tremendous job, and hopefully they will continue to do that. And those people that are homeless that need the help, they have a place to go now, and so it's really good that Victorville's done that.
It's just done an amazing job. So that said, back to insurance work, right? And the public life. Do you see any other offices in the future, or you don't know yet?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing now, but I've always thought that at some point moving on to a higher office might be in the cards for me. County supervisor is always out there, but that's not something I'm looking at right now. It's just one of those positions that should it make sense at some point in the future, I may consider that. But for right now, I'm running for re-election to the County Board of Education this fall, and so going to continue to do that and represent the High Desert the best I can. And
your agency's taking on clients if they need it.
Yeah, we're there. We're here to help individuals, business owners. We pretty much do it all. Your auto, your home for you personally, your business insurance, as well as employee benefits, medical, dental, vision, whatever the need may be.
It's great. Well, I know that, I never would refer one place, but I just know that you have to have a professional brokerage with access to commercial products if you're going to be in business. And so, that's kind of the thing. Is I'm glad we touched on some of that, because it's not known. It's not known. If you've never been in business, you don't even know what the risks are. So
yeah, so true.
Appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you.